in the week that he was really doing everything he could to play, and he will in fact play against the Vikings today here at Ford Field. So let's bring in my co-host Anthony Bellino down at the Henry Ford Health System Update Desk. Anthony, first off, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well, Tori. Great to be back, and unfortunately already week 17, the season just felt like it flew right by.
It certainly did. And Anthony, this has been one of the strangest seasons of all time here in 2020. Obviously, we've crossed over into 2021, but we've still got one game day left to go. How would you characterize how strange and bizarre this last season has been?
Well, it's been very difficult. I mean, you just look at what took place last week when the Lions coaching staff was going to be unable to actually be present in all the interims and all the shuffling all season long. The NFL doing the best that they can to try to get games pushed back, delayed, rescheduled, restarted. And as long as we make it through every game, then the NFL would have completed the entire 2020 regular season, which I think is a feat. I forget. It's like, I forget how many total games, 256 total games or something like that, without a single cancellation. So that in itself is a feat and a testament to the National Football League and then to each individual organization. Although some teams did hit some bumps in the road and some players were going to be unavailable, some coaching staff members were going to be unavailable for certain games. And when you look at the entire process as a whole, I think we can mark it as a success, all things considered, because of the pandemic.
Well, this is the final game for the Detroit Lions. Obviously, they match up here against the Minnesota Vikings. They're starting off their New Year's with a Week 17 game. Players arrived to the stadium a little bit earlier today. A snowy morning here in Detroit, but thankfully players were able to get here safely and stay dry, arriving for this Week 17 matchup. Got to stay warm out there, Anthony.
Yeah, ski mask. That's always a good way to look intimidating. And although both teams are out of playoff contention, Tori, a couple of different milestones we want to take a look at. Matthew Stafford, who you mentioned earlier right off the top, is going to be active for today's game. He needs just 209 passing yards to reach 4,000 for the season. He hasn't achieved that mark since the 2017 year, and he only needs 184 yards to go for over 45,000 for his career, a number very few quarterbacks have been able to reach throughout their NFL careers. Then on the other side of the ball, how about Justin Jefferson, the fabulous rookie? According to these notes here, so let me look down real quick, he needs 111 yards to break the NFL rookie record set by Anquan Bolden, who had 1,377 back in 2003, and he's just 47 yards shy of tying the franchise rookie yardage receiving record for the Vikings that was held by Randy Moss, another name.
Yep.
Now, he's already surpassed Randy Moss in total catches, so look out for Justin Jefferson. Of course, Matthew Stafford, a couple individual accolades, and TJ Hawkinson is right on the cusp of setting the franchise record for receiving yards for the Lions today as well.
Well, we've talked a little bit about who will play in this game. Let's take a look at who will not be playing in this game with the Vikings inactives presented by Henry Ford Health System. Anthony, first off the top is Dalvin Cook. He will not be playing in this game after the passing of his father. We are sending condolences to the Cook family. Obviously, a heartbreaking reason to be missing this game, but completely understandable. It does change things a little bit for the Vikings on offense, and you look at the rest of that inactives list, a lot of names on that defense. That Vikings defense has dealt heavily with injuries this season. Anthony, how do you see those guys who are missing affecting this game today?
Well, it's a defense in Mike Zimmer's career that's ranked 6th, 9th, 1st, 6th, 5th, and 11th in the last few seasons. And this year, they've ranked 28th, allowing 29.3 points per game as the Vikings defense. So when you look at Kendricks being gone, Chris Jones being gone, Dancer being gone, Holmes being gone, it's a lot of depth there on the defensive side of the football, which really opens up the door for Matthew Stafford and the offense. It's going to hurt. And as you mentioned, for Dalvin Cook, our hearts go out to him. It was such a tough personal loss for him, and it's, as you mentioned, it's understandable. I don't know how you try to get ready for a game with the passing of a family member like that. So that definitely changes the Vikings offense as well, because Dalvin Cook has been an absolute machine this year for the purple and gold.
Absolutely. Well, let's turn now to the Lions inactives presented by Henry Ford Health System. Like we mentioned earlier, the biggest thing to note here is that Matthew Stafford is not on this list. Neither is Frank Ragnow. The center will play today after dealing with the throat injury that he's dealt with over the last couple of weeks. He spoke about that this week. Thankfully, he spoke. We got to hear him speak again. I know he had to stay silent there for a couple of weeks. So those are your two most notable names. Danny Shelton also came off of IR. He is active today, but take a look at some of these inactives. Tyrell Crosby, his season is done, as is Joe Dawes and Jamie Collins Sr. Those are probably the names that you want to pay attention to that will be missing out there on the field today, Anthony.
Very much so, and obviously not having Kenny Galladay again because of the hip injury, so the Lions offense is kind of getting accustomed to playing without that big time, big playmaker down the field. But when you lose 2 offensive linemen, thank God Frank Ragnow is available, because you talk about taking the starters off the offensive line. That is not an easy task, especially with all the injuries Matthew Stafford's dealing with currently going into this game. You need every able and willing man out there on that offensive line to try to protect him.
All right, well, let's take a look out of town with our out-of-town preview presented by BetMGM. The Lions aren't playing for any playoffs today, but there are a few teams that are. Some really interesting games out there, Anthony. Which ones do you have your eyes on?
Well, I know we got to make this quick, so I'm going to go Dolphins-Bills at 1 o'clock. That's a monstrous game for Miami. I could spend all day on this kind of stuff. And then go to Cleveland. Cleveland against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, are they going to rest Ben Roethlisberger? That's going to be the move for them. Mason Rudolph is going to get the start. We all know what the drama that happened last year between Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph. Those two will see each other again. But the Browns playing for their playoff lives, and the Steelers, playing for seeding purposes right now. And in the NFL, I mean, they got exactly what they wanted. You had the extra playoff availability, that extra spot, 7 teams in each conference, and we've got a whole bunch of action. The NFC East still has to declare a winner, so look for that 8:20 game at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. The Washington football team against the Philadelphia Eagles. That's a monstrous game.
Yeah, what a game to put on Sunday Night Football. Anthony, it's been fun looking at the out-of-town games with you all season long, but you know what? One of my favorite things all season has been,
yes,
it's been our fantasy picks. We've taken a look at fantasy picks across the league. These were Anthony and I's picks from last week, and Anthony, I got to give you kudos because Josh Allen really took that one home. Picks from last week, and Anthony, I got to give you kudos because Josh Allen really took that one home for you.
I mean, I gotta send care packages to each one of these guys. I don't even know what I can get them that they'd be happy with. Maybe just a thank you card. I needed it. They knew that I needed it. I talked to each one of them pregame and said, guys, Tori has been beating me up and down like I stole something all season long. I need some help out here, and they came through. Fair
enough. You deserved it. So this week, our Jess Trophy winner is Anthony. That trophy is named for our producer, Jess. She does a fantastic job rounding up our fantasy picks every week, so we named our trophy after her. Anthony, congratulations on a win this week.
Thank you. Desperately needed it, that's for sure.
Well, it's been fun competing with you all season long in fantasy, and I will say we got to make some picks a little bit later on. Even though everyone's fantasy picks or fantasy seasons are over with, we'll be making some picks later.
Yes, it's huge. And this one might be, and I hear we're going to get a total season recap winner as well. So Jess put in a lot of work there. So I'm impressed, and we might have some predictions for the postseason as well.
Absolutely. Well, Anthony, this season has been quite different, but one thing that has not changed all season long is the importance of honoring our military. We had the chance to sit down with our Kroger hometown hero this week, Rob Cole, and hear his inspiring story of service. Take a look. This week, our Kroger hometown hero is Rob Cole. Rob, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on being our hometown hero.
Yeah, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Tell us how you got involved in the U.S. Navy.
It was 2009 when I signed up to join the Navy. I was going to school at Eastern, and I kind of just wanted a little more direction in my life, and the Navy was a good opportunity for me to do that. And I was really glad I served. I did 2 deployments overseas, and it was a really great time. Really changed the direction of my life.
How did it change the direction of your life?
Gave me more structure. Gave me also more resources to go back to school and finish my degree. And just made me more mature overall.
Now, what were your deployments and what were those like?
Yeah, so I worked on the F-18 Super Hornets, and I was deployed twice, and once in 2010 and once 2013 and 2014. And in both, we went over to the Middle East for Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and then Operation New Dawn. I have a total of 2 years of sea time out in the middle of in the water in the ocean. But it was exciting. Launching jets off the aircraft carrier is definitely a lifetime experience that not many people get to do. And it builds a lot of bond and camaraderie that lasts for a lifetime.
What did your time, whether it was serving overseas or just being in the U.S. Navy in general, what did that time mean to you?
Yeah, it really meant serving my country and serving my community. It meant a lot, making my family proud. Just doing something that's bigger than myself.
And you're in the U.S. National Guard now. So what is your role there? What do you do with that?
Yeah. Currently, so I got out of the Navy. I got my degree at the University of Arizona, which is always kind of wanted to do. But the GI Bill gave me the opportunity, and moved out to the desert, and I'm back in Michigan now. And then since I had my degree, I wanted to become an officer, and so I signed up to join the Michigan National Guard, and I'm doing the officer candidate program right now.
You've spent time all over the world, whether it was being deployed or going to school in Arizona, but you've received this honor to be the Kroger Hometown Hero with your hometown team, the Detroit Lions. What did that mean to you?
Yeah, I was very excited and happy that I found out that I was selected. I mean, serving people from all over the country, you get fans from like all the different teams, and I was always very proud to cheer for the Lions, whether it be, all the way across the Middle East or even back home. So it's quite an honor to come and be the hometown hero.
What has it been like being able to go around the stadium today and kind of see some of the things? I know it's not a normal year where there's a game with fans and everything, but we know we'll have you guys back for that sometime soon. How cool was it, though, as a Lions fan, to be able to see all this?
Yeah, it was really cool, going down in the field, seeing the locker rooms and all that kind of stuff. It was kind of a little eerie being very quiet and everything, but it was really cool seeing the field level view of everything.
Your family is here in Michigan as well, so what did they think of you being able to be the Lions hometown hero?
Yeah, my wife was very excited. My son, who's 2.5, I don't really think he understood, but we watched the Lions game last weekend on TV, and they won. He was pretty happy about seeing them score touchdowns. So
I love it. So were we.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being our hometown hero this week, Rob. We appreciate you, and we appreciate your service.
Thank you.
We want to thank Rob again for his service, and we look forward to having him back at the stadium soon.
A big thank you to Ford for being the presenting partner of today's Detroit Lions pregame show. Make sure you tune in to Fox 2 tonight at 11 p.m. to watch Sportsworks and Lions Game Night for a complete recap and interviews from this afternoon's game. And if you're watching the game from the Detroit Lions broadcast region, make sure you tune in to Fox to catch today's game, which kicks off at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Hey, Lions fans, thank you for your support all season long. Enter our Fan Appreciation Sweepstakes for a chance to win autographed items, Lions merchandise, and more. Just visit DetroitLions.com/fan-appreciation sweeps to enter now. And we want to see your game face. As always, you have the chance to be featured on today's show by posting using the hashtag DTE Gameface and showing us your game day energy. Don't miss out on your opportunity to be a part of the Lions game day. Post now with the hashtag DTE Gameface.
BetMGM, an official partner of the Detroit Lions, is coming soon to Michigan, but you can sign up early and get $100 in free sports bets and $100 in free casino bets with bonus code LIONS. Be ready for the action the moment BetMGM goes live. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com to get a total of $200 in free bets with bonus code LIONS. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help. Excludes Michigan disassociated persons.
This week, the Detroit Lions announced the grantees who will receive funding from the team's Detroit Lions Inspire Change Social Justice Initiative for 2021. Lions players and ownership plan to invest almost $500,000 in financial support through grants to 11 Metro Detroit organizations, ranging from healthcare support to scholarships for students in need and transformation for the criminal justice system.
There are people outside of our bubble, outside of our outside of my teammates who aren't as fortunate as we are, don't have the job that we have. So it's just kind of a chance for us to give back, just try to inspire a little change in someone's life and someone's day and try to help them for the better.
Lions players identified supporting those impacted by COVID-19 and students in the Detroit Schools Community District as top priorities this year.
This year was especially crucial and I guess different from at least my past 2 years, just with everything that was going on back in the summer and the spring with racial injustice and things that were going on around the country. We had a lot of conversations. I mean, every time we were having Zoom meetings, basically either we were starting with this conversation or we were splitting off into groups and ending with this conversation.
We made that big statement about, making a stand, and ending the cycle. And just to be able to, back it up with the funding and everything, and then also the club contributing as well. It's just as cliche as it gets, is putting our money where our mouth is. Just shows how passionate we are about it.
Although, like I said, we're not able to walk out of practice every day, we feel as though one thing that we can do is to help give time and help give money that otherwise what we'd be doing with it, honestly, We wanted to continue that throughout the year, no matter how our season went. I think we've been able to do that.
Organizations like Detroit Lions Academy, Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, Downtown Boxing Gym, and Pure Heart Foundation are among those that will benefit from the collaboration between Lions players and ownership.
It just shows they care, and I'm really appreciative of that. That they back it up. They talk about it and they back it up as well. We can't be more appreciative for that, because it's not only giving us confidence that the people from the top down really care about us personally, but it shows that they really want to see change, for everyday people, people of the city of Detroit, and I just love to see it.
For DetroitLions.com, I'm Tori Petry. Well, this season hasn't gone how the Lions wanted it to on the field, but it's still so good to see those players and ownership using their platform to make an impact off of it. Welcome back into the Detroit Lions pregame show presented by Ford. I'm Tori Petry. We've got Tim Twentyman down at the Henry Ford Health System update desk. Tim, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Tori.
Yeah, it's been a weird and wild 2020. Tim, I mean, you've been a part of many Lions seasons here. How does this last season compare to some of the others that you've covered?
It's different, for sure. There was the strike year of 2011, I believe it was, and that offseason was a little weird, but to have to go through some of the testing protocols and then wiping away an entire OTA season and no preseason, and then to constantly deal week and try to avoid this virus. It's been difficult, but kudos to the NFL and everyone involved for being able to get to this point. I'll be honest, Tori, I don't know about you, but when we were getting around, August, September, I didn't think we would get to this point with having an entire season, just the way the virus was going. And so kudos to the NFL, everyone involved for getting us to this point.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, we've got a Week 17 matchup between the Lions and the Vikings to chat about here today. Not much on the line for either team besides pride, but we will be seeing number 9 out there on the field. He is active for this matchup today, despite the rib, thumb, and ankle injuries he has battled this season. You're taking a look at his stats so far this year. Tim, what do you make of Stafford making an appearance on the field today?
Well, tough as nails, right? Like we've talked about all along. And when we talked to him, I thought what he said was appropriate. He said, look, I signed up to be quarterback for the Detroit Lions, and what that means is I get 16 opportunities. Hopefully you get more. This year they won't, but that means I get 16 opportunities to go play quarterback. He's paid a lot of money. That's his job, right? And so kudos to him to not want to let his teammates down. He talked about guys battling through injury, and those guys are playing. Why can't I? And so that's what leaders do, and that's what Matthew Stafford is, and I would expect him to play well today. Look, he's 209 yards away from 4,000 yards. I'd like to see him get that. That'd be the 8th time in his career he's gotten 4,000 yards, first time in 3 seasons. So I think that's a good little mark to watch for today, and just stay healthy, right? Don't do anything serious, but he wants to play, right? He's tough as nails. He's a captain, and so he's going to play. He signed up for 16, and this will be 16.
Absolutely. Well, you guys are getting a look into live warm-ups down on the field. Right now, the specialists are out there, and there's a few interesting storylines to follow with those guys. Number 48, Don Muehlbach, longtime long snapper for the Lions. He was asked whether he was up for a rebuild going into this next offseason. He said, hey, I'd love to see things get turned around before I leave this place. And right standing next to him is Jack Fox, the young punter who made his first Pro Bowl. And then out there on the field, you also got Matt Prater, who's heading into this offseason as an impending free agent. I know he wants to kick well today. He talked this week about how much he loves Detroit and this organization and living here in Michigan. So those 3 guys have some interesting stories to watch today, Tim.
Yeah. Well, you like Fox, obviously. First-year player going to the Pro Bowl. Looks like he's got a long future, and it's going to be here in Detroit, at least for the foreseeable future. And then, like you mentioned, we'll have to see what happens with Muehlbach. It's death, taxes, and Don Muehlbach, right, when it comes to the Detroit Lions. But he's getting up there. And we knew at some point they would have to think about the future. They've got Swertel, I believe is his name, on the practice squad. And so, they've kind of groomed him all year long. Is he at a point where, now is he ready to kind of take that mantle? We'll have to see. Don said he'll evaluate it, talk to his family after this year, but if he's feeling good, he'd like to come back, and we could maybe potentially see another training camp battle there at the long snapper. And then kicker, Matt Prater's pretty happy here in Detroit. We talked to him this week, like you mentioned. I think he really wants to stay here. The Detroit Lions gave him an opportunity, and he's had, a number of good seasons here. He's had some uncharacteristic misses, but it's not about contact or leg strength. I think you'd be a little worried if that was the case. I think his torts has just been a little off, as they say in golf. And so I think he's going to work and figure that out. But he's a guy, if I'm the Lions, I would re-sign to. There's not really many better when it comes to those end of the game, those critical kicks. It seems every time Matt Prater comes through, and I'd like a guy like that on my football team.
Yeah, kicker is a very mental position, and it's been a strange year to try and keep everything straight in that area. So, you can understand a little bit of struggles for that position.
Well, and too, Tori, he had Suppose and Fox were competing for that punter job all camp, and so now he's got a new holder.
Right.
And so not only did you miss all of OTAs, but then you were going between guys holding all of training camp as well.
Absolutely.
So you didn't get those reps with that one guy. And Matt was quick to say, hey, look, that's not the excuse. That's not why I'm missing. But to your point about this being a difficult season, I think that's part of it too. For so many years, there was that consistency with Don Muehlbach, Sam Martin, and Matt Prater, and he had to deal with something new this year, and maybe that played a small factor.
All right, well, Tim, neither of these teams are playing to get into the playoffs today. So when you're watching a game like this in Week 17, when you don't have playoff implications to watch for, which players are you paying special attention to today?
Well, we talked about Stafford out the top, but then a couple for me are some young guys, right? DeAndre Swift. Here's a guy that was, dealt with a hip injury in training camp, got a little bit of a slow start, obviously had the drop in Chicago Week 1, right? And then, got to a point where he was starting, being a really huge part of this team, and then boom, he's got the concussion symptoms and the illness, lost some games. And so I'd like to see him finish strong. He had that cut last week that I tweeted about right away.
Man.
And I said that cut right there is,
I think it broke my ankles.
Is why you've got to love the future of this guy, right? He runs very low, he runs in balance, and why I love that cut is because he didn't break stride, he didn't break speed at all. That's what he gives you, that explosiveness, that one cut and boom, he's gone. And so I'd like to see him have a big game. Look, he's got 808 total scrimmage yards, that's fifth most amongst rookie running backs. Can he get to 1,000? That's a big game, 192. But I'd love to see something like that, right? For a young guy like him, to be a big part of this last game and go into the offseason with a ton of confidence, it would really boost that young man. And a guy that we talked about all season long, T.J. Hockenson, right? Pro Bowl tight end. He's been a little quiet, Tori, the last couple weeks. You see the numbers right there, obviously, for the totality of the season. Very, very good. 64 catches, 698 yards. You love the average over 10 and the 6 touchdowns. But like I mentioned, he's been a little bit quiet the last couple weeks. I'd like to see him again end the season strong as well. And then now you've got your two biggest core pieces, right? The future of your team, DeAndre Swift and T.J. Hockenson, finish this season strong, go into their second and third seasons with a ton of confidence. And the last guy for me is kind of a favorite of mine over the years. It's just Marvin Jones Jr. Talk about consistency, right? I mean, here's a guy who signed here 5 years ago, and he's just, every year he brings it. Injuries, he's dealt with a few of them here and there, but look at this season, right? 68 receptions for 798 yards, 7 touchdowns. That leads the team. All 3 of those categories lead the team. And he's had to do it without Kenny Galladay on the other side, right? So now the focus shifts over to you. And Marv just has been a model of consistency. You see Stafford right there, and he'll be looking for Marv today. I can guarantee that. And Marv, I'd love to see Marv get 2 touchdowns, Tori, because 2 touchdowns, I believe, moves him into 3rd all-time in franchise history behind Calvin Johnson and Herman Moore. And he's been here 5 years. That's it.
Yeah.
And so that just shows how productive Marvin Jones Jr. has been, how consistent, and I think he's going to be a popular name in free agency for a lot of teams to know that they can come and get a guy with that kind of consistency who can step in, be a number 2 guy right away. And he hasn't, he's not missing any steps, right? He's still got that speed and route running ability, and so hopefully the Lions make him an offer, because I think he's just one of those guys that just brings it every week. He's really, really consistent, but we'll have to see how that shakes out this offseason.
You guys have been getting a look into warm-ups on the field. Matthew Stafford down there adjusting a little bit of those pads, keeping his ribs nice and safe and as comfy as possible today. We will be seeing number 9 under center in this matchup against the Vikings. Tim, you talk about one of those weapons, Marvin Jones Jr., who has been just so consistent throughout his career here in Detroit. He was asked by reporters this week about free agency. He's approaching free agency, this coming off season, and he talked about testing those waters. So, you never know what will happen in free agency, especially when the Lions don't have a GM yet in place. So those decisions are going to be up to the new GM. You just kind of have to consider, hey, this could be some of these guys' last game in a Lions uniform.
Yeah, and there's another one right there, right? Danny Amendola, he's going to be a free agent. We've talked a lot about Kenny Galladay. He's going to be a free agent. What will that look like? Will that be a franchise tag? Will they come to a long-term contract? And so right now, as it stands, heading into 2021, Quintez Cephas is the only Lions wide receiver under contract. Wow. And so, you talk about the needs on defense, and there's another guy that popped into the screen there, Mohamed Sanu. I think he's been a really, really good addition, and I could see them, trying to re-sign him as well. I thought he's had a nice finish to his season here, become a reliable guy alongside Marv on the outside. But they've got to figure out some things. This is a terrific free agent class of wide receivers. This is another terrific draft class of wide receivers. So don't count out the fact that wide receiver is going to be a position you need this offseason. We talk about defense, and we'll get into the defense here in a little bit, but wide receiver is one of those spots. I think you're set at running back right. You love where you're at tight end. You've got some terrific offensive linemen. We've talked about the quarterback position. I would bring Matthew Stafford back. He's under contract for 2 more years and decide the future, after the new GM gets in here. But that wide receiver position has got a lot of questions surrounding it, so that'll be an interesting one here as the linemen come out onto the field. We'll see, what they do at wide receiver and what kind of additions and subtractions we see there.
Yeah, you're seeing number 77 jog onto the field.
Yeah, that's see,
Frank Ragnow. Good to see, and it was good to hear from him quite literally during this week as he spoke with media. He had to go 2 weeks without talking.
Could
the
you
last
go 2
couple
weeks
of
without
weeks.
talking, Tori?
I don't think I could. I really don't think that I could.
I mean, could do
it's
it.
my job. I talk for a living.
I know.
So.
See, I write, so it's different. I think I could do it. But could you imagine that, just having to go 2 weeks?
Oh my goodness.
And he told some funny stories about his fiance and being able to get out of dishes because he couldn't talk. And Frank's a good dude, right? And you're talking about the future there. Pro Bowler for the first time, which I love. He's a number 2 graded center in Pro Football Focus right now, just having a terrific year. And there's a guy that's going to be in that spot if he wants to be for the next decade in Detroit. They say what you want about Bob Quinn and some of the hits and misses he had. That one was certainly a hit.
Absolutely.
A few years ago. He's going to be a good young center in this league for a long, long time.
He really is. It's good to see him out there on the field today. I'm sure he is relieved to be out there himself. People look at the guys playing in Week 17 and they question, this isn't a game that has any implications for the future, and they wonder why some of these stars play in these games. But Tim, these guys love playing. This is what they do. They want to be out there for their teammates. So to me, it's no question that if they feel healthy enough that they're going to play.
If you feel that way, you probably never played sports. You played sports, I played sport. Anybody who's played sports knows that, look, you want to go out there and compete, and it doesn't matter if you don't have anything to play for. You have something to play for that day. And all those guys are professionals down there. All those guys make a lot of money. And all those guys know that they signed up for 16 games like we talked about with Matthew Stafford. And that's what you get. And you should have some pride in that. And so for all those, tanking people and you might ruin your draft pick, that's just not how athletes and franchises operate, right? You play to win the game, right? That's a famous phrase, and that one's always stuck with me. That's just, you play to win the game. You try to win every time you step on the field.
You absolutely do. We've still got to talk defense here on the pregame show presented by Ford. We will do that in just a bit after this quick break, so don't go anywhere.
Let's hold the line. Protect it. Fight for it. Sacrifice for it. Let's look out for each other. We are so close. Soon we will be what we were. Touching, loving, living. Let's finish strong.
All for leaving opponents in our dust, linebackers and cancer alike. All for believing in ourselves, even when victory seems impossible. All for believing in ourselves, even when victory seems impossible. All for working tirelessly as one for the good of all around us. As the official healthcare provider of the Detroit Lions, Henry Ford Health System is proud to keep our greatest athletes and their biggest fans at their best. Henry Ford Health System, all for you.
Welcome back into the Detroit Lions pregame show presented by Ford. I'm Tori Petry. That's Tim Twentyman down at the Henry Ford Health System update desk. We've talked a lot about special teams, about the offense, and now it is time to talk about the defense. Tim, this is a defense that has struggled all season long. They've got one last shot at it here today against the Vikings. What are your expectations for this defense in their final showing?
It's been a long year for the defense. You can't say anything on it. Some injuries, obviously, and what happened with Matt Patricia, and it's just been it's been a tumultuous year on that side of the ball, to say the least. And so, I think today you want to see those guys we talked about playing for pride, right? And I think this is a defense that wants to play for pride. I think there's some records that can be set today that you don't want your name associated with if you're a defensive player, right? I think 35 points for the Vikings will tie the most points ever allowed in a season by the Detroit Lions. I think that was 2008, the year they didn't win a game. And I think it's 262 yards, somewhere around there, I want to say, for allowing the most total yards in a season. Again, that 2018 that didn't win a game. And so there's some pride there for those guys running out onto the field, right? I mean, you don't want yourself associated with records like that. I think back-to-back 40-plus yard games, they just haven't played well, right? And Tom Brady and Tampa Bay did pretty much whatever they wanted to last week, and I think he, as a defensive player, you were probably a little embarrassed by that performance on national TV last week, and so I think you've got some pride you're playing with if you're those guys on that side of the ball. You want to avoid some dubious records, and you want to play with pride and go into the season, maybe with that bad taste washed out of your mouth.
Absolutely. Well, it's been tough to find bright spots on this defense all season long. We know that they have struggled heavily. But Tim, if you had to look at this defense and say, hey, these are a couple of the highlights so far this year, which players would you point out?
Well, obviously you got to start with Romeo. Romeo Quara, the veteran defensive end, 1 sack today, and he gets double digits. He gets to 10, and you'd love to see that for that guy, right? Especially heading into free agency. That'll boost him. I think he's going to be a name. We talked about with Marvin Jones. I think he's a guy too that in Romeo Quara that I think will be popular amongst teams in free agency. But he leads the team in tackles for losses, sacks, right, forced fumbles, quarterback hits. You say it, he's been their most consistent player year in and year out. And look, they've had some turnover on the other side with Trey Flowers, missing a lot of games, and then they bring in Everson Griffin, and he goes on COVID and he misses, and so there hasn't been that consistent guy on the other side all year long. But still, Romeo's done his thing on his side, and so I think if you look at one of the positives this year is obviously been Romeo, and another one for me would be maybe second-year cornerback Amani Oruwariye. He's had some ups and downs. He's had a couple games where he's allowed some big plays, but I think you look at that number on the bottom, and that's the big one for me, the opponent completion percentage. He's been their most consistent cornerback all year long in just his second season. And so I think the future looks bright with him. And I think he's proven that he can be a guy that you can rely on and who can play. Is he a number one corner? I don't know. I think that's still up to debate. Is he a guy that can start and play in this league for a long time? I think he's proven that this year. And so I think when you look at bright spots, those are two for me, at least on defense, Tori.
Yeah, Tim, the corner position has been interesting this year because it did not turn out how any of us expected it would. Obviously, the Lions made some bold moves in free agency by trading away Darius Slay. Then they signed Desmond Trufant. You kind of figured he was the guy that was going to step in and take over as the top cornerback on this team. And he was able to get out there a little bit, but just not quite enough. He struggled with injuries this season. Then the Lions take Jeff Okudah at number 3 in the draft. When you draft somebody that high, you expect him to come in and contribute right away. But it's really tough to do at corner, a really hard position to learn when you don't have an offseason and you don't have the normal build-up to a rookie season that rookies typically get. So he got in there, was kind of baptized by fire, but then he dealt with injuries as well. But Amani Oruwariye has been the consistent guy out there for the Lions all season long at cornerback, and you have to commend him for that.
You do, and it's good to see from a second-year player too, 4th-round draft pick, right? And there's a guy now that you can say, all right, he's big, he's physical, right? He's gotten better from year 1 to year 2, right? When you're evaluating players, you'd love to see that, and so you got to think there's a pattern there. He'll be even better in year 3. And he's got a ton of experience this year with some of the situations that you mentioned with the injuries and Okudah not being quite ready with everything he dealt with in the offseason and training camp. And it's been a baptism by fire, really, for Amani Oruwariye in his second year. And he's been on the better side of a lot of those battles, and I think you've got to love that moving forward. There's a guy I think you can count on at the cornerback position, a guy who's under contract for a couple more years, who you assume is going to get better. And now you've got Jeff Okudah. He'll be a second-year player. You've got Amani Oriwari. He'll be a third-year player. So now you've got a couple of young guys that you like, that you hope continue to take those steps forward, and then you're set at that position for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, we're giving you guys a live look down into warm-ups on the field. Number 9 getting set to start in this matchup in Week 17 against the Vikings. You also saw TJ Hawkinson out there. Tim, it wouldn't be a pregame show with you and I unless we talked about TJ Hawkinson, which of course we did in our offensive segment of the show. There's one
I
more.
think he's waving to us.
Yeah,
right?
I
Hey,
think
thanks,
he is.
Tori, Tim, for talking about me in the pregame. Love it.
I think that's exactly what he's got on his mind. Tim, there's one more position on defense I do want to touch on before we move on from the defense. TJ really wants to be on the show this morning. We haven't talked about the safety spot. That's a position that, was a little bit underwhelming for the Lions so far this season. Duron Harmon, who they traded for in free agency, stepped in, was a veteran voice on that defense, but has had some struggles of his own this season, obviously heading into free agency again this offseason. But Tracy Walker was a guy who's played not quite as much as maybe we expected him to coming into this season, but what do you see for him and his future here at the Lions?
Well, that's a big one for me today is Tracy Walker, and I'd say I could throw Will Harris in there too. You mentioned it, that safety position has been very underwhelming this year, and I think Tracy Walker's been a little disappointing as well. You look at last year, right, in his second year, a full-time starter, he's playing free safety, he's got 100 tackles, he leads the team, and you think, wow, the future's really bright for Tracy. And look, he admitted this week that some things that he dealt with in the off season, the death of his cousin obviously, and like he became a father for the first time, and then you're dealing with COVID and all this stuff. He said he maybe let that affect some things he's did on the field maybe more than it should, and I'll give him that. But I think this is an opportunity now for a guy like Tracy Walker to show that he can be part of the plans moving forward, right? We're in the evaluation stage. You mentioned it. They're not playing for anything, right? And so what they are playing for is putting good tape together, and this new regime that's coming in is first thing they're going to do is sit down and look at some of this tape and evaluate who they can move forward with. And look, Tracy was moved to strong safety more than free safety this year. I think that's part of his struggles. I think he's more comfortable at free safety. But look, you've got to prove that you could be multiple in this league, right? And the guys that are valued are the guys that can do multiple things. And so, step in there, do it well this last time, put together some good tape, and show that you could be part of the future moving forward. And I'd say the same thing for Will Harris, who I think has also had a down year in his second season. A young guy that might get an opportunity to play a little bit more today alongside Harmon, who you're seeing there on your screen. I think, Tracy Walker and Will Harris, I think, have to have strong games today. I think they'll be motivated too, because I think there's a big question mark about their future heading forward in the future of the safety position on defense.
Tim, good stuff on the defense. We appreciate you joining us all season long here on our pregame show. It has been a pleasure having you, chatting about warm-ups, seeing how many times we can mention TJ Hawkinson. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on the pregame show all season long.
No problem. Appreciate it and like doing it.
Thanks, Tim. Well, guys, for the 5th year in a row, the Detroit Lions have partnered with Comerica Bank to help highlight Michigan-based small businesses. So this week, we had a chance to visit and learn more about EHS Trucking. Take a look. This week, our Comerica Bank small business of the game is EHS Trucking. We visited their offices here in Brownstown Township to find out how Comerica is keeping them trucking forward.
EHS Trucking is a truckload carrier servicing primarily the automotive industry. We started in 1998 with one truck, one trailer, one driver. Ed Worley started the company in Brownstown, Michigan. In 2008, we acquired a contract with Daimler Chrysler. So from there, we've been able to establish a great reputation service in the auto industry.
What do you guys do in the auto industry? For someone who's not familiar with your line of work, what do you do?
Well, again, we're a truckload carrier, so we pick up automotive parts from the distribution centers and suppliers going directly into all the assembly plants for Ford, Chrysler, and GM.
Well, it's amazing that you started with one single truck and one single driver, and now you've grown to what you are today. Tell us about that growth and how you guys got to where you are.
Well, as I mentioned, Ed started it with one truck in 1998. He grew with up to about 15 trucks up until 2008. We got that contract with Daimler Chrysler. From there, we just had a little bit of growth until we partnered up with Comerica in 2011. So since we partnered with Comerica, we've grown on average 26% every year.
Wow. How has Comerica helped you achieve that growth?
To me, it's a peace of mind. They've been a great partner to us, not only during times of growth. Obviously they helped us with our line of credit. They've helped us with the building that we're currently sitting in, but they've also been here for us in 2020 when it seems like there's challenges around every corner. Continuity has been a big deal for us over the 9 years we've been dealing with Comerica. We've only had 2 account managers, so just having that one person you can call has been a huge asset for us.
So let me ask you this. What does a typical day in the life look like around here at EHS Trucking?
The people out that you're going to go out and look at here in a little bit do all the work for us, all our drivers. Like I said, we have 230 drivers, we have 24 people on staff in the building. We have 10 mechanics that support the operation, so it's all their work that gets everything done for us.
Now, do you guys just drive here in this local area? Do you drive all over the country? What does that part of things look like?
Primarily in the Great Lakes region, but 80% of what we do right here in Michigan, Ohio.
Okay, very cool. What does it mean to you guys to be selected as the Comerica Bank Small Business of the Game and be highlighted on a Lions game day?
To me, it's great for the business to show that we're doing some things right and that Comerica thinks highly of us, but to me it's about our employees, that all their hard work is getting recognized, and for that I appreciate that. I also would like to recognize the 2 people at Comerica that help us out a lot. Anthony Davis and Lori Sandusky have been a huge help to us.
Thank you so much, Mike. We appreciate what you guys do, and congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Thank you again to our friends at Comerica Bank for helping us honor EHS Trucking. To learn more about the small business program, head to DetroitLions.com. Welcome back into the Detroit Lions pregame show presented by Ford. I'm Tori Petry, and now I've got Mike O'Hara down at the Henry Ford Health System Update Desk. Mike, Happy New Year to you, and welcome onto the pregame show one final time.
Okay, Tori, thanks for having me. One final time, that sounds pretty final. Final tap.
Final for the 2020 season, first time for 2021. We got a lot to talk about here as we preview the Minnesota Vikings. Tim kind of talked you through the Lions roster. Mike and I are going to take you through who to watch for on the Vikings, because much like the Lions, Mike, the Vikings are not playing for anything as far as postseason goes today here at Ford Field. So what are you watching for on the Vikings?
Well, first of all, I want to see how they finish out the season. This is really a disappointment for their head coach, Mike Zimmer, and the Vikings. This is his 7th year, and they've been in the playoffs every other year under Mike Zimmer. And certainly I thought, in full disclosure, my preseason pick was for the Vikings to win this division and the Lions to be competing today for a wild card berth. So it shows you what I know. But really, when we talked to Zimmer during the week on our conference call, the one thing he talked about was the attrition of his roster. And Troy, they really got hit hard defensively. I mean, you look at some of the players they lost early. Daniel Hunter, who had 14.5 sacks last year. They never re-signed Everson Griffin. Between the 2 of them, they had 22.5 sacks. As a team this year, they have 22. So it just goes to show you how injuries and personnel losses can really change a team and turn it around from year to year.
Absolutely. And you don't often hear a head coach be as forthcoming about how injuries have impacted his team as Mike Zimmer has been, nor do you hear them be as, open about how disappointed he's been in his defense's performance. He called this one of the worst defenses he's ever had. Now, he's always had really good defenses, so that's a high bar, but I found it interesting that this defense has struggled so much this season that their head coach would come out and say that.
Well, they gave up, half 100 last week plus to the New Orleans Saints, and you never used to see that. And I'll go back to way before your time with the Purple People Eaters and other defenses of the Minnesota Vikings. That's always been their calling card, whether they played outdoors in the rain and the snow or indoors in the domes, the 2 domes that they play into. But this is a completely different look for anything I'm used to seeing in the Minnesota Vikings. Now look, from time to time you're going to have down periods within seasons, within decades, whatever, but nothing like this that I can remember for the Minnesota Vikings.
All right, well, there are a lot of players that will be missing on that Vikings defense. So give us a name that we should be watching for that will be playing today for the Vikings defense.
Well, Dalvin Cook's not going to play, the very fine running back, and the Lions saw him put 206 yards on him. But I like, maybe I just like his name, okay? But think about this, Alexander Madison. Shouldn't it be the Alexander Madison Insurance Company? I mean, what a name. I'm Alexander Madison. But you know what I like
Sounds
about
like a
him
law firm to me.
Isn't that, well, that too, and take your pick. But you know, he's really been a good, tough runner for him. He's got almost 400 yards rushing, and that's hard to get when your lead guy, Dalvin Cook, has got 1,500 and just a threat every time he touches the ball. But Madison, I think, will be looking to prove something, looking to improve his stock. Now look, I'm not going to say guys are going to get too wound up over week 17 when your team is 6-9 going in. But really, I think it's an opportunity for him. Unfortunately, it comes because Dalvin Cook's father passed away, and he's dealing with that. But I would look for Madison to be a guy for the Detroit Lions to really have to key on. And stopping the run hasn't exactly been the strong suit for that defense.
How do you expect them missing Dalvin Cook to impact this game offensively for the Vikings? Does that give the Lions defense a little bit of a break at all?
Well, no, absolutely. The thing about Dalvin Cook, he can hurt you a lot of ways. I don't think he's a primary receiver for them, but he's a guy when he gets his hands on the ball in space, he can give you something more than the play is designed to get, and then slip tackles and go the distance just like that. I don't think Alexander Madison can do that, but you never know. Once a guy like that gets rolling, he could have the game of his life. I've seen it happen before, not just to the Detroit Lions, but in other games.
How about the guy that will be handing the ball off to Madison, Kirk Cousins, the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings? What have you made of the 2020 season he's had?
Kind of his career, you know, since he came into the league in 2012, drafted by the Washington now football team, then the Redskins. You know, to me, he's sort of like the human speed bump. You know, you're going along, you know, smoothly, and all of a sudden, kaboom, you hit the bump. That everything is, you know, going fine until you hit the bump, and that's sort of been his career. Look, I think he's a fine player, but he's always had turnovers have been an issue for him. And again this year, he's got a 50-51-1 loss record as a starting quarterback, which means he's break even. I think his talent is better than that, but it just doesn't happen. And this is let me read my notes here. He's got 32 touchdown passes, 13 interceptions, and 9 fumbles. The problem with him, with Kirk Cousins, is it's been turnovers and sometimes not performing his best in big games. But he has really pretty much done well against the Detroit Lions, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does well again today. That's a perfect setup for him to sail into 2021 with something behind him.
Well, Tim and I talked earlier on the pregame show about the struggles that the Lions have had in their secondary, and that secondary will be going up against two very good wide receivers today in Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. You're taking a look at some of their stats here today. The rookie has 1,200 yards, almost 1,300 there, 79 receptions, 7 touchdowns. Obviously, Adam Thielen's got him in the touchdown category with 14, but those are two big threats there on the outside for the Vikings.
You know, Justin Jefferson, just a note about him, there is a Detroit Lions connection. His
You're right.
father, Sean Jefferson, one of the, honestly, ounce for ounce, pound for pound, inch for inch, one of the toughest football players I've covered, both physically and mentally. He finished his career as a player here in Detroit and then went into coaching. I think he was maybe a glorified intern or something like that. When I say glorified, I'm not demeaning it. I'm just saying that's the way he got in, and was a very fine, tough-minded, you know, his players were tough when he became a coach here, and he moved on a few years ago. But and I think his son kind of embodies that. I mean, he's a kid who just plays from play to play to play, not too much flash. He does it with his production and his performance. And Adam Thielen, he's had some big games against the Detroit Lions. He's had some big games against everybody. And you talk about two guys who entered the league at different ends of the spectrum. You know, Jefferson as a first-round draft pick, Thielen as an undrafted free agent, and look what he's made of himself. It just goes to show you, when you look out there on this field today in Week 17, a game that means absolutely nothing, you might think you might be able to start a career today with a big performance.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson has had quite the rookie year. He has been absolutely impressive to watch this season. Mike, we've talked a bunch about that Vikings offense. We talked a little about the Vikings defense before and the struggles that they've been through. But give me a name that we should watch for on that defense, someone who will be playing for the Vikings defense today.
Well, I'll give you one, and there's no reason to go in depth because of all the stuff. Look, this is not the defense that Mike Zimmer wanted to play with. He had what he used to call the mug defense, where just get up on the line of scrimmage and just squash everybody. The one guy who still had a pretty good season, and no surprise, Harrison Smith, the strong safety's got a team-high 4 interceptions, but really he's been one of the bright spots like he always is. Wherever the ball is, whether somebody's running it, somebody's catching it, somebody's chasing it, we usually see him there in the picture somewhere.
All right, that's a good look at the Vikings today. We've still got to have Mike tell us how the Lions can win, though, in our Keys to the Game segment. We'll be right back with that after this quick break.
You don't become a 117-year-old automaker in this country by refusing to change. The Ford Motor Company does not resist, deny, or ignore change. We pledge to make our most iconic vehicles electric, to use 100% renewable energy across all global manufacturing plants by 2035, to stand for lower greenhouse gas emissions, to stand with Americans and for the planet.
As a Marine, I learned resiliency. But when I lost my job, my home, and was living out of my car, I felt like a shadow of that person. Now, I'm working to end veteran homelessness. Nearly 40,000 veterans struggle like I did. But with the help of Rocket Mortgage and Built for Zero, my community has ended veteran homelessness. Yours can too. Join us. Visit ahomeforeveryvet.org to get involved.
Welcome back into the Detroit Lions pregame show presented by Ford. I'm Tori Petry. That's Mike O'Hara down at the Henry Ford Health System update desk. Mike, this is your final segment on the Detroit Lions pregame show for this season, so you better make it good.
Well, before I make it good, I just want to let you know that I've given it my all for you this year, Tori, and so is my notebook. This is the very last page of this notebook. I had to turn it over to use the back of that one page for Keys to the Game. That's how much ink and paper I used trying to give you some information.
Yeah, and half of it has ended up crumpled up on the studio floor up there because that's what you do every Sunday.
Well, I'm over. You can have the whole notebook. But the keys to the game to me with the Detroit Lions is play defense. I mean, just play. And I've been saying this week after week, game after game. Just play defense. At least just get in the way. I mean, last week what we saw against the Tampa Bay Bucks, for some reason I want to keep calling them the Patriots because of Tom Brady, but that was awful. Look, try to leave this game and just say, look, I gave it my best, win or lose, tie, whatever. We played hard. We played right to the end. Just do that.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, I mean, this is the last game of the season. It doesn't mean too much for either team. But what would you say that you want to see from the Lions besides just seeing them play defense? What key thing do they need to do on the field today?
Well, there's a couple of guys with milestones. I'd like to see a touchdown catch by Marvin Jones Jr. That would give him 50 for his career. I'd like to see Romeo Okwara get a sack. That would give him 10. I think he'd be one of 6 Detroit Lions with double-digit sacks since 1999. And that's really, and then the rest of it, look, number one, play like you have nothing to lose because you don't. Play like you have something to gain because you do. I know it sound like a competing thoughts, but it's absolutely true. Make some kind of good impression, not compression. Make some kind of good impression in this last game and walk off feeling good about how you played.
Well, I am enjoying starting my 2021 with a Lions game and with you on the pregame show here today, Mike. Thanks so much for hanging out with me all season long.
Pleasure's been all mine.
Well, guys, during a very challenging year, one thing that we want to do is give our teachers extra recognition for their dedication to students. So to show our thanks, we partnered with Campbell's Chunky to honor select Michigan teachers throughout the season as the champion of the game. We sat down with our final champion, Anthony Sater, and heard about his teaching experience. Take a look. This week, our champion of the game, fueled by Campbell's Chunky, is Anthony Sater. Anthony, first of all, thank you so much for joining us and congratulations on being our champion of the game.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Well, we love what you do for your students. So we want to know, first of all, how you got into teaching in the first place.
In college, I didn't know I really wanted to go into teaching. I was like in the path towards pharmacy, and I was a pharmacy tech for a while. But it was like in the pharmacy where one of the other technicians told me that I'm like really patient and I should consider being a teacher because I was like helping other technicians out as they were getting started in the job. Did a little bit of teaching here and there, and I enjoyed it, so I went for it.
So then what did that look like for you? Did you go back to school? Where did you go to school, and how did you enter the teaching profession?
Yeah, I was at Wayne State for my undergrad. So I was pre-pharm at Wayne State, and then I made a pretty quick transition into the College of Education. And so once I made that transition, I graduated pretty quickly, and then I jumped into my first teaching job.
What's your role now in Dearborn?
In Dearborn, I teach two different classes. I teach biology and chemistry, and mainly to English language learners. So I help them learn English through the content of science.
What makes you passionate about helping those students out who may not have the same advantage in public schools as English speakers?
It's really like gratifying seeing them grow and learn English and being excited about learning in general. So because I teach biology and chemistry, those courses are back to back. So when I see them in the beginning of like freshman year, and then just 1 year later when I see them in chemistry, there's a lot of growth, and it's like stunning how fast they can learn in just 1 year.
I understand you also have an Instagram to reach out to your students as well. What's that all about?
Yeah, so that Instagram is just like another way to like reach out to my students, make sure they're getting their content like wherever they are, not just for my students, but for anybody that's interested in science, they can follow along.
What does it mean to you to watch those students that you've been with kind of blossom and flourish through the work that you do with them?
It's pretty awesome. It's probably one of the best things about teaching, seeing that growth happen in the students. Even though they graduate in 4 years, a lot of them come back to school and even email me or message me saying like what kind of an impact they've made. And I've stayed in touch with a lot of students, or they've stayed in touch with me, and that's a great part of the job.
Well, we love what you're doing, and we love spotlighting our teachers. What does it mean to you to be selected as the champion of the game fueled by Campbell's Chunky for this week's Lions game?
It means a lot. I was really surprised when I received that email saying that I was chosen. I didn't even know I was nominated, so it meant a lot that somebody wrote about me and put me up for this opportunity. It was really exciting.
Well, you are clearly appreciated by your students. Thank you so much, and congratulations once again.
Thank you, Tori. Thank you for having me.
We want to thank Anthony and all our champions again for their dedication to teaching, and wish them all a successful rest of the 2021 academic year.
We'd also like to take this time once again to thank Ford for being the presenting partner of today's Detroit Lions pregame show. Now make sure you tune into the home of the Lions after the game on WJR AM 760. You'll get all the latest info from the game, plus hear from Coach Bevel and many of your favorite players as well. That's the Lions postgame show on WJR AM 760, the radio home of the Detroit Lions. All morning, fans have been submitting photos showing their game day energy using the hashtag DTE Gameface. You can see fans from all over prepared for today's game. Thanks again to all of our fans who are part of today's DTE Gameface.
Anthony, the cat with his Lions mane there on the DTE Gameface photos. I love it. Absolutely love it. Love seeing our Lions fans get hyped up for this final game of the season, which means, Anthony, I'm hyped up for our final picks of the season. We won't be picking fantasy because fantasy seasons are over with by now, but we will be picking champions for the playoffs. So let's take a look at the AFC playoff picture. Anthony, who are you taking in the AFC?
I'm one of those guys, you got to beat the champ to be the champ. Patrick Mahomes and company have been real bored on their way to a 14-1 record so far. I'm going to roll with the Chiefs to win the AFC.
Well, you know what? I'm actually going to agree with you. I'm saying the Kansas City Chiefs here as well, although I kind of thought the Bills might make an appearance here.
You want to know why? Because nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. No, I have to go with the Chiefs. Too much experience. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, we love them.
We had to get that quote in on the pregame show at least one more time, though. All right, let's turn to the NFC. Who do you have in the NFC?
I'm going to go with the NFC North divisional foe, the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones. They have something brewing very special at Green Bay. 12-3 on the season. If they get home field throughout the playoffs, Lambeau's going to be brutal to play in this month, so I'm going to roll with the Packers.
That's a good pick, and I was tempted to go with that as well, but I went with the Seattle Seahawks. Happy for Quandre Diggs, former Lion, seeing his success out there in Seattle. DK Metcalf has been absolutely fantastic to watch this season. I like what Seattle's been putting out there. So that's my NFC champion. Obviously, now those two teams in our theoretical situation play each other in the Super Bowl. So which one do you think comes out as the champion?
I think I said Green Bay. I think I'm having some, okay. I did say Green Bay, but I started talking about the Chiefs. I got all excited, but I think that Aaron Rodgers will win another Super Bowl this year.
All right. Well, I think that the Chiefs repeat this year. I think it's a second championship for Kansas City, but we'll see what happens. A lot of really good teams in the playoffs, and I look forward to watching the playoffs all January long. Certainly will be fun to see. Now, Anthony, usually we've done our fantasy picks here where we've selected guys that people should play at quarterback, wide receiver, running back, and then we picked a Lion, and we've done this all season long. It's been really fun to select these fantasy picks. We did our fantasy fantasy recap of last week earlier on in the show, which you won the trophy for, but I do want to see who won the trophy for the entire 2020 season. What do you think?
Well, I'm just going to think it's me. I had a really rough stretch of like 6, 7, maybe 9 weeks there where I just couldn't buy a win. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
10-3. You went 10-3. Congratulations. That's great work. I'm resigning. I'm gonna resign, and maybe I'll get some. Maybe I'll be able to pull my picks for next year. I'll be able to pull the audience.
Oh my goodness! We have an actual Jess trophy here on the pregame show. Anthony, I would like to thank my family. I would like to thank all of my fantasy players that I selected. I would like to thank Jess, our namesake, for our trophy. Our entire pregame crew. It's been an honor. I am going to treasure this one. This is a fun one from 2020.
I better see that on the bookshelf behind you on the rest of Tori's takes all throughout all next season. That better be front and center so I can just look at it. I'm going to use it as motivation.
Oh, it is. It's going on my home studio set. That is for sure. Anthony, thanks so much for being a good sport, for doing these fantasy picks with me all season long. It's been a blast hanging out with you on our pregame show all season. Thank you, and I appreciate it.
Tori, thank you so much, and Happy New Year to you.
Well, guys, lastly, before we close out our pregame show here, we've got to get to our projected starting lineups presented by Ford. We're taking you to the defense today. We've got Austin Bryant, Nick Williams, John Pinacini, and Romeo Okwara on that defensive line. Then at the linebacker spot, Christian Jones, Reggie Ragland, and Jelani Tavai. And finally, in the secondary, you've got Tracy Walker, Justin Coleman, Amani Oruwariye, and Duron Harmon. All right, guys, that wraps up our final pregame show here in Week 17. It has been a blast hanging out with you guys every game day morning this season. We sure miss having you in the stands behind us, but we are so happy that we were able to spend it here with you on our pregame show. We appreciate you joining us, that is for sure. Make sure you tune in to this Lions game between the Lions and the Vikings here in Week 17. If you're in the Lions local broadcast area, tune in to Fox at 1 p.m. for the kickoff of that game, and then come right back here after the game for our post-game show presented by Ford. Once again, we thank you guys. I thank Anthony and Jess for this trophy. It's been a fun one. Enjoy the game, guys.